Very, very quick. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to do a quick review of last Sunday forum before handing it over to Elaine and our presenters for today. So thank you. Last week we did the tour around the building. That was something new. Thanks everybody for kind of going through that adventure. Apologies to those of you who were here in the Shaw room. As you know, the visuals for that were not good, and I'm sorry. We'll try to correct that in the future. The good news is that Don put the recording that we did onto our website, and that came out with beautiful visuals. So if you ever want to look back and see, well, what was that little teeny bit? For those of you that were here, the picture was very small. You can capture it there. And thirdly, feedback. If there's any additional feedback or suggestions from how we did that last week, we did get some suggestions already. Please let anybody on the Sunday Forum team know. That would be David Lee, Elaine, Carolyn, Bob, Mary Reese, or myself, so that we can make improvements or keep those things in mind for next time, and or whatever other kinds of remote Zooming we may do elsewhere or in the community, so that we can have that work the way that's most useful for people. And last but not least, Eileen, and Joe had a bunch of handouts last week. Not everybody got a handout. So she's made more. I'll put them on the table over here. If when you leave, you want to pick up a hard copy of those handouts, they are the same thing that went out electronically, but this is just the hard copy piece. Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. And handing it over to Elaine. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see so many bright faces this morning. I'd like to just present our two speakers this morning, and I'm going to begin with Pastor Frederick Dix. He likes to be called, I think, Pastor Fred, correct? He is a native of Rochester, New York, traces his educational journey from Catholic school through the Rochester City School District, culminating in his graduation from Wilson Magnet High. He furthered his academic pursuits at SUNY Geneseo, earning a Bachelor of Science in History before obtaining a Master's of Divinity from the esteemed Colgate-Rochester Crozier Divinity School. With a profound commitment to education and a passion for lifelong learning, Pastor Dix embarked upon the ambitious pursuit of a Doctor of Education from St. John Fisher University, and he will be receiving that next year. Good luck with that. That's really wonderful. You do have your plate full, though, don't you? His spiritual journey began in his upbringing within the church. Nurtured by his parents' steadfast dedication to weekly attendance. From an early age, his musical talents became evident as he honed his skills on the drums, eventually becoming the minister of music for numerous churches and leading various local and national musical events. Ordained as a pastor, he has shepherded 3 congregations where he serves, and including the founding of, do you just say Life? But it's LIFFE, and he's going to talk more about that, where he serves as the founding pastor. So that is Pastor Fred. And then I'd like to introduce you to Reverend Alan Daly, who is sitting there. Alan is a second career pastor in the United Church of Christ. He returned to seminary after 35 years in consumer product sales and marketing. And after having completed that, he shares that he is still in sales and marketing. He currently serves as an intentional interim pastor at both UCC and Presbyterian churches, most recently at John Knox Presbyterian Church in Greece. He also serves as the interim executive director of the Greater Rochester Community of Churches, which is how I happen to know him, and as a board member for Rock Acts, UCLM, and the New York State Council of Churches. And we'll hear more about that from Alan. In addition, his passions include his anti-racism and anti-poverty work, where he has served as a UCC New and Right Spirit Anti-Racism Workshop leader, a former member of the Episcopal Diocese of Rochester Race and Reconciliation Task Force, and a member of the Genesee Valley Presbytery's Working Group on Race. He and his wife, Sue, who I consider a friend, live in home in Brighton and enjoy spending as much time as possible with their 5 children and 9 grandchildren. So there will be a quiz about all of this. No, we're just so pleased to have both Pastor, my goodness, Pastor Fred and Alan with us this morning. And I think, Pastor Fred, you're going to begin, correct? And I think that might fit. Yes.
Perfect.
And I'll get more if you want.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your time. I was told I have a strict 15-minute timeline, and I said, don't they know I'm a preacher? But it is a pleasure to be here and an honor with all of you today. I am Pastor Frederick Dix, founding pastor of Life Church. We are small but mighty, and we'll get a little bit into that. And so I'll try to be brief and keep good timing. If someone can help me, it's 9:55. So when I have about a minute or two left, somebody just kind of do that. Yeah, we'll be okay. All right. And I'm glad I'm going first because this esteemed gentleman has quite the repertoire and credentials. And I admire that because it's not just good enough to not be racist, but it is important that we are anti-racist. And I don't think enough people understand that I'm not racist, but it's more than that. We have to be actively working as a community together to combat the ills of society. And so I commend you, and I look forward to hearing all about your work as well. So with that being said, we bring you greetings from Life Church. We are here at Dubsea. Long story short, I'm the founding pastor, and you're probably wondering what Life stands for. You probably recognize that space. That is Taylor Chapel. And we had the opportunity. We started meeting last year as a small body of believers, a few of us, and through prayer, fasting, and the call from God, we decided that it was time to make a move and become a church, a body of believers. So Life is an acronym, as you can see, with 2 F's. And so we'll just quickly kind of go through them. The L stands for love. And so the scriptural basis, of course, John 3:16. But we were established in 2023 as a group of men and women rooted in love. We wanted to make sure that it was not about anything other than advancing the kingdom, taking care of each other, and loving on one another. And so the L is for love. International. So the scripture basis for this is go ye therefore where? To all nations. All nations. And I'm loving what I see in this room. I'm seeing all nations. I'm seeing diversity. And this is what the kingdom really should look like. And so it is important for us at Life to be able to live out that experience for all people. All people are welcome at our church. And so our goal is to reach all nations as Christ has commanded. Uh-oh, I'm pressing the button and it doesn't want to cooperate. Okay, did it. Okay, thank you. And then, of course, the F stands for faith, for without faith, it is impossible to please God. In November here, our first service, it was right in Celebration Hall. What an amazing experience. I'll show you some pictures of that. But we only had about 12 folks to show up. And the enemy wanted me to be a little discouraged with that. We had done our best to kind of get the word out. But then Christ reminded me that he started with 12. And that kind of worked out pretty good. And we'll talk more about that later, but we had to do the work. Faith without works is dead. Is it me? There we go. So, oh, go back. There we go. So one of the things that we really focus on is fellowship. We've had two kind of major banquets. The first one being that first Sunday in November of last year, right here in Celebration Hall. And you can see some of the pictures, the more autumn pictures. We just had a second banquet where our bishop came, and I'll speak a little bit about him shortly, where you see the purple table set up. So we believe in fellowship. We believe in connecting with folks. We have different community partners, people and folks who are, we don't focus on membership. We don't. We focus on discipleship. We focus on believers. And so the idea is simply to connect with folks, meet them right where they are. If you know, the first miracle of Jesus was what? Turning water into wine. Why? Because I just want y'all to have a good time, right? So that was literally Jesus's first miracle. So what does that tell us? It is important for brothers and sisters to dwell together in the house of the Lord and to be able to come together. The church is interesting because the bishop, Saint Cyprian, I believe, said that how can you have God as your father if you do not have the church as your mother? And so, well, who is the church? We are. We are the church. If you do not believe in the church, you do not believe in yourself. And so forsake not the assembly of ourselves. So the fellowship is a key principle and rooted within Life Church. And then, of course, the experience. I wanted to play a video. I was told I came too late with it. So, but this was a video just to give you some highlights. And I want you to notice something. This was on Easter, just this captured picture at the start of the video. This was on Easter. Remember I said we started with about 12? There were I had 3 musicians, 3 or 4 people in the congregation in November, and then about 3 or 4 working in the back preparing for the banquet that we had. Some more folks came a little later on for the banquet, but we started with about 12. On Easter Sunday, this past Easter Sunday, we had over 40 folks, and most of which are members now. Not all of them, but most of which are members. So doing the work, faith without works is dead. Doing the work, Jesus said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. And so that's what we do. We're not looking for perfect people. If you are perfect, don't come to our church because, we'll mess it up. You'll mess it up, right? No, but the idea is that we believe in the experience of understanding. I put it like this. Maya Angelou said, and I kind of live by this. She said that, and I'm paraphrasing, people really won't remember what you say. They really won't remember even what you did or do for them, maybe here or there, but they will never forget how you make them feel. And so my first sermon series in November was about the fruit of the Spirit. And the idea is that when you come to life, that you have an experience, that you encounter Christ, that we will have an opportunity to love on you and to fill your basket. So that every time you walk through the church doors and you leave. I don't know if your basket's full or not. Most people come with empty baskets. They're coming seeking something, seeking a word, encouragement. But most people come seeking something. So that when they come, they leave with a full basket of the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, self-control. And that we model these things and that we pour into folks. So this is what God has called me to. This is the vision that He has given us at Life, and we live it out every day. We are preparing training. We have a gentleman who is well-versed and experienced in street and prison ministry. He will be doing workshops for us so that we can get out in the community in an impactful way. And some other partnerships, we have a gentleman who was actually featured on Spectrum News. His name is Mr. Marvin T. Adams. He will actually be with us today. Today is Friends and Family Day, Fellowship Day. So it's not going to be a traditional type service, but all of you are welcome to come. We have lots of food. Please come. I bought all this food. So I need some folks to eat it. But they say, I bought all this food, and some people say, you know, you only have, but if you pray for rain, you should what? Take out an umbrella. So I'm just believing God that he'll continue to bless us. But anyway, we have different partnerships that we are working with folks in ministry. Again, I don't focus on membership if you're about the kingdom. That's what we encourage folks. But our mission, we exist to bring the gifts of God to the people of God. Our mission is to do life together. And that is what we say. We do life together. Our mission is to do life together by sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. We will make disciples of Christ through the power of love, grace, peace, hope, fellowship, scripture, spirit, sacraments, and faith. Our vision is simply, we aim to advance the kingdom through everyday interactions with those who seek the truth. Life ministry will aid in changing the world, one soul, one family, one community, and one nation at a time. Life will bring people to the knowledge of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, through a faith fellowship experience. So this is who we are. This is why we exist. This is our goal. And let me see if let me go back. Did I miss something? So I always like to highlight our kids. Remember, I talked about the 12 that we started with roughly. This is our children's ministry. This to my far left, this was an Easter egg hunt program we had. And we have a children's moment every Sunday. And so the idea is Jesus says, suffer them not, forbid them not to come unto me. And to enter into the kingdom of heaven, you must be like a what? A child. They're not just the church of tomorrow, they are the church of today. Train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they are older, they will not depart from it. And so God has been blessing us. Now, if I could just get my parents to do better and bring them every Sunday, we'd be it varies, but this is more and more where God is moving us and what it looks like. So I always want to highlight our youth, and our children's moment is called Kids for Life. You know, what was it? Toys R Us. I don't want to grow up. Toys R Us. I don't remember it, but again, it's good to be like a child, be happy and joyful about what God is doing, and so we teach and train our children, and so we are a part of a larger organization called CIF, Christ International Fellowship. This is our bishop, the Right Reverend Dr. David Maldonado. That's our seal. He and his wife in the corner. And as you may have noted, I'm keeping an eye on the time. 3 minutes. We are a Eucharistic centered ministry. It's called Recovering the Great Tradition. We're a Protestant church, non-denominational, but we believe in recovering the great tradition, the Eucharist, the body and blood. Jesus said, you can have no part unless you eat of my flesh. And so we believe in the Eucharist, and we do the Eucharist about 2 to 3 times a month. When we can, we do it every week. I have a small leadership team, so we do the best we can. We believe in the sacraments. A sacrament is a visible sign of an invisible reality that gives grace. So marriage, baptism, all the Eucharist, there are several sacraments, and we believe in liturgy, the work of the people at their own expense, the idea of understanding that the church, for the first 1,000 years of the church was one. And in 1054-ish, there was a split. Long story short, and then you all know probably about Martin Luther overseas, not Martin Luther King Jr., the other one. I always have to say that. Some people, Luther King, really? No. And then, but long story short, we believe in the great tradition of Eucharista, Greek meaning the great Thanksgiving, where you don't just sit down and eat your food. You say grace, you give thanks. And so we give thanks unto God and we celebrate his body and his blood as often as we can. Sometimes it's every week, but minimally 2 to 3 times a month. So this is our bishop, our parent organization, where we have several other churches. As you saw in our title, international. I'm almost done. We are international because this October, we'll be going to Puerto Rico to help plant a church and do mission work there. Next year, we will be going to one of the countries in Africa to plant a church. So coupled with the local ministry we do here, we do feed the hungry and the homeless, and we try to see about them. And so we have local ministry and then, of course, international ministry because this is what Christ has commanded us to do. Oh, here we go. So again, this is Life Church. I did the best I could to give you a synopsis, but this is where we do life together. And I welcome and invite you all to join us today if you'd like. It's a non-traditional Sunday. We're going to have fun and food. We're going to have Kahoot, and we're going to have Jesus Jeopardy. We're going to have singing, and we have our children's moment. And I just invite you. We start at 12:30, and this place will always be very special to Life because you all welcomed us. You allowed us to come into your home as brothers and sisters in Christ, and we are ever so grateful. So these pictures will go in the history, the canon of where we started, and you all have been a major part of that. And so thank you guys. Just a few more pictures, and I'm truly grateful for this time, and I'll sit down. I didn't know if there are questions now, or do we just shift? We'll take those at the end. All right. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you.
Oh. Well, you never know. I might just. Oh. Well, you reminded me of something, Pastor Dix. And when you said, you were talking about the length of what you're speaking, and it was a preacher. Well, about 6 months ago, I had probably one of the most blessed opportunities I've ever had in my life. And I was asked to do the eulogy for the Reverend Lewis Stewart's homegoing service. And one of the things he said to me before he passed was, you can leave your 12-minute Presbyterian sermon at home. Oh, in any case, humor is terrific. I want to thank all of you. Wow, this is a great group. And every time I'd turn around, somebody else that I knew was walking in here. So I got called by Elaine about a month ago and said, you've got 2 organizations who have offices in the church, and we're doing this this sharing time, and we'd like to have you come in and talk about them. And if you've got some time, you can talk about the Greater Rochester Community of Churches, which I'm also associated with. And then I informed her that I was also on the board of the State Council of Churches, and she said, well, they've got a program there that people might want to hear about too. So I'm going to really do a superficial job in going through what's going on with who these organizations are, the kinds of things that they work on. And I've prepared a handout, which is over on the table there, which has got all the slides that I've got here, so you don't have to take notes. And there's also contact information on that, so that if you want information or you want to make contact with that organization, I can help you get that done, and you can just contact me coming out of this. So the first one I'm going to talk to you about is I got to figure out how this works. We got you're younger than me. You can figure it out. Yeah. Got it.
If it works. Yeah,
If it works. Oh, geez. Okay, I'll just let you do it because obviously it's not working for me. Okay, the first group that I'm going to talk about is the United Christian Leadership Ministries. This is an organization that was formed from the Black Church experience, and their focus is on justice activities. And we'll go to the next slide because there's more detail there. And there, nope, you went back, you went to, there you go. And it's not just a Black Church organization. Because about half of our membership, I think a number of them probably have come from downtown church. Certainly, a treasurer had come from down here, and so we focus on criminal justice reform issues, police community relations, and most recently we've been given a grant to do some development of some educational programs for engaging parents and communities together. But the work that's been done, and it was done by Reverend Stewart and Bishop Dwight Fowler and Reverend Dr. John Walker, involved the criminal justice reform community, building community advocacy groups with them. They worked on the bail reform initiative. They've done a judicial observation project with the judicial system. They were very active in the body worn camera initiative and doing advocacy. But basically, these are the things that they get involved in. All of the organizations I'm going to talk to you about are organizations who are the total volunteer organizations. So if there's something that piques your interest, that's, you might want to just go to a meeting, and a membership meeting, and hear more about it. They're always looking for help. And if you're looking for things to do in your local community, here, and I know you've got a social justice group here, there may be some very specific things that you can do some hands-on work. So that's what the United Christian Leadership Ministries group is. I'm sure that you've seen some of the press conferences they've had, because a lot of them were had right here in this room, if not downstairs. And so that's what UCLM is and what it's all about. We can go to the next slide. Okay, the next one is one some of you may have heard of. It's called the Rochester Alliance of Communities Transforming Society, known here as ROCAX. You can go to the next slide. ROCAX has been around in a couple of different structures, but basically they do community organizing. Which means if there's a topic that they've got some groups that are interested in, they'll research them, they'll figure out if there's things that can be done, there's things that can be done to improve a situation. They may work on some legislative reform, they may work on communication, educational stuff. Their task forces include one on poverty, jobs, and housing, and that's probably one of their biggest ones, and one of the ones that they're most active in. The co-chair of that task force is Reverend Ted Polano, who's the associate pastor for outreach over at Third Press. The second one is their Justice Task Force, and they work on some of the things that UCLM does. They work in conjunction with UCLM on them. And so that's the second one. They have a task force that's just focused on voting rights and getting people out to vote and putting together programs on that. So that if that's an area that you're interested in, that's something that, that's right there. Climate issues are another one. There's a lot of organizations that are doing work on it. They've got an active group that's working in a number of different areas. And so that's why that's there. Systems reform sounds a little ominous, but basically it's trying to take a look at some of our infrastructure issues as they relate to the legislative systems and the political systems that exist in the community, and how are they affecting justice and justice with people, whether it's racial justice, whether it's economic justice, whether it's educational justice. All of these things very often are tied together in ways that they're tied together in ways that you can't just go after one side or the other. You've really got to work at it all at once. So that's a benefit for that. And then lastly, there's an education reform group. Their primary focus is the city school district and the city school program, even though they are aware of what's going on out in the county, but The city school system is totally separate from the school systems in the county. And that's one of the things at least that I think affects some of the problems that we've got and some of the challenges that we've got in the city school system. Okay, let's go to the next one. The next one, Greater Rochester Community of Churches Faith in Action Network. And actually, I shouldn't be the one that's speaking on this. My predecessor, who's sitting right over here, she was the executive director there for some 30 years before I showed up on the board, and she retired and said, here's the baton, and you can take it for a temporary time. That was 10 years ago, she told me today. It's amazing how quickly things go by. You're going to find that a lot of the stuff is still the same because a lot of the problems and the challenges are still the same. But again, this is a volunteer organization. One of the differences here is our local churches, especially the primary Protestant denominations, are active and they have people that are associated with it. We've also expanded out so that we have representatives from the Quakers, we have representatives from the Latter-day Saints, we have representatives from the Roman Catholic Diocese, and most of your ecumenical groups across New York State don't include the Roman Catholics. And that includes the state council, and that's not because they've been kept out of the organization, but it's because they've elected not to go and not to be part. So the fact that we have an active presence from the Roman Catholic denomination, I think you'll agree with me. A lot of it came because of the relationship that we had with Bishop Matthew Clark. Here in Rochester several years ago. I mean, he was a really unique guy. Let's go to the next one here. Areas of interest include anti-poverty things, a lot of them around for homeless. We have a big end-of-life program where we actually go out and do memorial services at a local cemetery for people with no family. And we've put together, and we've got a number of clergy people that are available to go out and do it. We've got some people that go out and are part of the, 3 or 4. We do that, and then at each year we have a memorial service that we pull everybody together, share some stories of some of the folks that we did services for, and I mean that has been an incredible ministry of the Greater Rochester Community of Churches ever since I've been there. In addition, they put together a program where we make available counseling for homeless folks, and we do these through a lot of the homeless shelters where we help them to understand what end-of-life options that they have available to them, because a lot of them have no idea. So that's an active program that we've got there. We're very active in working with other homelessness issues. I personally am working with a group that's been formed to open another homeless shelter, and sometime in the near future. And that's about all I can say about it, but it's been one of the most exciting projects that I've ever worked on. We also work with a lot of the organizations in the city in terms of, food justice issues. And we work with FoodLink and so there's a lot of programs there. The second area, obviously, you could tell from my own personal background and a couple of the colleagues I've had from there, are anti-racism programs. We do workshops. And one of the things to support what you were saying, one of the things I've found that my white brothers and sisters have to understand is that there's so much that we've got to learn. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And by the way, most white folks just don't get it. And so that's a big piece of the workshop work that we do. And so and one of the things I'd come to learn, I ran into a quote once that said, this was supposedly from Ben Franklin, that social justice will never occur until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are. And when you're as outraged as those who are, you will get out and roll up your sleeves, and that'll be part of what you're doing. And it's not, you're just not there to help then. And so that's an important piece. We've been actively involved for a long time in interfaith dialogues in the city. This has slipped off a little bit because of COVID, but we're starting to get some of those pieces back together with the Jewish and the Muslim, specifically the Jewish and the Muslim communities, but we include them all and we do different things. And in fact, Marie and I had several years ago participated in a Hindu Christian dialogue group that was really amazing. And it's where you start to find out, you know, there's a lot of people that are out there seeking a path to God. And one of the things that we all have done is we've chosen to follow the Christ path, but there's other paths that people are trying to use to get to God. And I think that's an important concept for all of us to understand. Last thing I've got here is the Faith in Action Banquet, which is also something that got slowed up because of COVID. This is a banquet that we've held year after year after year. We lift up a couple of local people that have been very active in doing social justice work, but we also give the congregations that are part of our organization an opportunity to lift up one or more of the folks that in their congregation are doing things and they want to lift them up. And that's been a real active part of that program. And the last one, and let's go to the next one, is the New York State Council of Churches. And they too are very active in doing justice work. Let's go to the next one. And their primary areas of interest are in human rights advocacy, affordable housing, and they've got a couple of really significant housing initiatives going, one on repurposing existing churches in some different ways. And they'll come in and do a workshop. And probably, I mean, we've been had some conversations with them about doing something here in Rochester and including more than one church and doing it in one place. And, you know, this may be a great place to be able to hold a workshop like that sometime in the next 6 to 9 months. They're involved in green energy advocacy, ecumenical and interfaith dialogue, and they also are the organization that have been charged with supervising and overseeing the New York State prison chaplaincy program. So that's what's going on in those 4 areas. There's a lot of work that's going on in justice stuff locally that you can get involved in, and I think that's what's important. One of the things that I've found with churches and getting people into churches and wanting to do something is that the churches that have the big service components, people want to see what you're doing. And the other stuff goes with it, and that's good with it. But they want to know, I mean, Jesus came here to do something, to change something. And that's what I think we are all called to do. So the last one is just my information, but you'll get it. It's on the form there. And I would welcome contact, either email or phone, from any of you if you have got any questions about any of this stuff, or you want to, you've heard of somebody or you've heard of a thing that you want to get in touch with somebody else on, I probably can put you in touch with them. That's it. And now I can drink the water. And see, I did bring my 12-minute sermon back. Okay, I guess if there's, how are we doing time-wise?
We're good.
Well, I guess you can come up and I can be here and anybody that's got questions.
I have a question. Yes. Your the judicial observation project. I got it. Who is in charge of that? Or you can tell me later. But also, what courts do you cover? Do you cover the county courts and the city courts, or just curious?
Check. I know it's, I'm gonna have to, okay, that's good. I'm gonna have to check on that because while I know about it, I haven't been that personally involved in it. I know that it's been very positively been received by the justices. Basically, we've had people that have been trained to go in and just sit and listen, and then give feedback to the court system on, you know, how they heard some things that could be interpreted as bias in a court setting.
Mhm.
And at one point in time, I know there was some conversation about possibly taking this to the state level to see if there would be some ways of expanding it there. But it was a program that just came up in a conversation with a couple of justices, and they said, well, you know, we'd be willing to try it. So we put that together with them. But I will get you, I think it's Kathleen Zajac, but I'm not sure. She's on our board. But I will get that. I'll make sure I have your contact information, and I'll.
Pastor Fred, can I start you out with a really challenging question?
Uh-oh.
So, you know, the written Bible with its sacraments and everything, like of marriage, right? How does your church handle gender and sexual orientation diversity and keep that in the context of the sacraments? How do you understand that?
She started off hot. So, a couple of things. My church, all are welcome. No matter gender, sexual orientation. I have two members in my congregation who are a part of the LGBTQI plus community. One of the persons being married to a same-sex partner. So sacramentally, they came in that way. So now, should I say go get a divorce? No. They have made a covenant, and I want to be clear. Marriage doesn't just belong to the church. Marriage has been around before the church's conception. And essentially, without going through a whole detailed orientation, marriage is a contract where essentially I'll take care of you, you'll take care of me, I'll make sure your belongings are managed well when you passed on, et cetera, et cetera. So sacramentally, our parent organization and what we believe as an organization overall, we will bless a union of the same sex, but we will not marry the same sex. But if you come in that way, you are welcome. And we treat you just like anybody else. Our bishop, who is our leader, he's been giving this a lot of thought and prayer. And he's kind of the leading voice on this for our church. And he counsels with his other bishops and pastors, and we have the conversations. And so essentially, we honor the marriage vow that they have if they come in that way. If they want to marry, we cannot marry them within our organization, but we can bless them. We can say that God be with you, because there's only one judge. And so I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but that's kind of our stance and where we are with it.
Thank
you. We have a chat from Gail asking Galmat to please talk more about repurposing churches. And that might kind of overlap with one of my questions, which was maybe more of some explanation or description about the Affordable Housing Convention and Conference.
That's okay. That again is it's a program that we haven't done much here in Rochester, but we have a group that's been working with a grant and doing some work down in New York City. That's been working with them in terms of identifying what they need to do to get through the infrastructure issues in terms of turning churches around and doing things, but they've, and they've got it, they come out and they lead a workshop. I was going to get some supposed to have some information that I could bring with me today, but it didn't arrive. So, wasn't able to have it. If somebody wants some additional information on that, or more specific information on that, if you can give me contact information, I will see that you get it. Is that fair enough? Is that a decent answer? Okay, who is it that that asked the question? Oh, this came from,
One of our, Gail Mott.
oh, okay.
Thank you. I'll connect with you.
Actually, excellent. Thank you. Over here.
I just have a comment. I'm a member of the Quaker community and I'm the rep to Greater Rochester Community of Churches from our community. And what drew me to GRCC and the desire to be the rep is the burial program. I learned about that before I knew about GRCC. I learned it from someone who was involved in prison ministry, who told me about the program. And it's an incredible program. And if you imagine a service that follows individual services once a year, that celebrates people who are forgotten by most people, but who are spoken of fondly by neighbors, friends, people, homeless people from their own community, and whose lives are remembered. It's very powerful. And that service is always open to anyone. At Peace of Christ Church, which itself is a church now celebrating 3 separate church communities. And most people don't know this, but the form that is filled out by the volunteers who do this work is an official legal form. It took time to make it into a legal public health document that then allows people's wishes to be honored. There are lots of other programs I could speak about, but that's the one that drew me to the board.
Thank you, Maddie.
Several people from our church went to the service. It was at St. Ambrose at Culver and Empire a couple of years ago, and our deacons sent a donation, and I went to that service, and it was very, very meaningful. People spoke who maybe worked with these people, or they were ill and they took care of them, and it's a wonderful thing to support.
No. I'd like to just add to what you had to say, but I've been doing this for a number of years, and I get a call and someone has died, and sometimes I've gone to the service at the grave and there's been nobody for this person, nobody. But one of the most touching ones that I ever went to was a lady had been taken in by a Hispanic family. She was homeless and she had cancer, and they cared for her and they took care of her until she died. I was called to go and represent our organization. I got there and there were carloads full of this family, and they're thanking me for being there, for heaven's sakes, which was nothing compared to what they did. And they brought her little dog in a baby outfit and a boombox to sing at her grave. I was never touched by anything so much as I was by that. I mean, you just, what they did. How many people would do that? And it just was, I don't know, but this is what this particular group of people do. And we go to, I've been to ones where they have the color guard, because these people have been in the service and they still have nobody to be there for their death. So if anyone's interested, I think Sister Beth is who you would probably contact. She kind of shepherds this whole program, but it's so worthwhile.
Yeah, if anybody, again, this would be another thing. If you want more information on that, just drop me an email, give me a call, let me know, and I will make sure that you get in touch with the folks that are running that.
Reverend Allen, you must be aware that Rochester has a very successful repurposing organization, Providence Housing Development Corporation.
Okay. I'm gonna check them out.
Oh, yeah, they took over the Holy Rosary Church in the Northwest Rochester, and they turned it into affordable housing. And the sanctuary is home to community groups, a refugee, Mary's Place it's called. And they're very successful at getting, the federal low-income housing tax credits. And they've built some houses in that neighborhood as well. So that's a perfect example of a church being beautifully repurposed.
I will find out who they are. I will contact them and try to put them in touch with the group in Albany, because they're the ones that are doing it across the state. Thank you.
I have a question for Reverend Fred. What could you describe what the local mission aspects are of what you folks are doing? I think you mentioned something about locally being out there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. An easy question. But just to add, actually, we have 3 couples at our church, just to add to that, which makes me feel good because they feel safe and they feel the love, and so I think that's important. The church has to evolve in some ways, because we have the living word. And so if you're in the word, the Holy Spirit, but locally, as I mentioned before, a gentleman, his name is Mr. Jeffrey Whitlock. He has over 30 years experience of street and prison ministry. So he'll be leading some workshops, but after hearing Reverend Allen's presentation, I'll probably be linking up with some, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? And it's nice to connect with folks who are already established. So you'll probably get a call from me, sir. And I'll say I'm the guy that was your opening act here. And so the goal locally is to, there are people, after the pandemic, people said, people just aren't coming back to church anymore, and they're going after folks who used to go to church, and they're pouring all this time and resource, and we know that it is a personal journey for folks. But something that my church and I talk about a lot, there are a lot of unchurched folks out here, a lot of people who are seeking. And so we don't need to go after other church members, or I mean, they're welcome. We do reach out to them. But the idea is simply that we want to reach those who have not really heard the gospel or felt the gospel, experienced it. And so the local ministry is interested in street ministry. We had a gentleman that came in a few months ago, didn't smell the best. He didn't look the best, but he came in and worshiped. Now, I haven't seen him since, and he left before service ended. But I'm trying to go after those folks. And our local ministry will also be determined by who God sends us. Right now, on any given Sunday, we can have up to 12 or 15 youth. My background is in education. I'm getting a doctorate of education, hopefully, pray for me. Uh, but the idea is to focus on who is God sending me, and that will also contribute to what our mission is and our goal locally. If he's sending me youth, I'm not going to do not that those other ministries aren't good or worth it, but I have to focus on those who are present in the congregation, and hopefully that grows. We have a pretty thriving music ministry. It's small, but I have some dedicated folks to that. My father, if any of you know, is Julius Dix. He has quite the reputation in Rochester, so that has been helpful as well. He's amazing, and so the focus is still evolving, shifting, growing, but we have a few things on the local agenda that we are aspiring to tackle, and building more partnerships with wonderful people like Reverend Allen, and hopefully I'll be seeing many of you in some of those partnerships as well.
I have a quick question. You talked about the children that are coming. Do you have a Christian education program that meets somewhere in the church? And I just wonder how that's working.
Thank you. That was a great question. So I'm going to be very honest. This influx of children happened within the last month and a half, and it's a beautiful thing. I thank God every day for it. And so that is on the agenda. I have a very good relationship with Eileen. She's been gracious. Whoever was involved in hiring her, wonderful job, wonderful woman. She's been very kind to us and recognizing the needs of our church. And Ed and so many of your staff has just been wonderful. Probably very shortly we will be looking into that. We are getting ready to have like a family and children's game night next month. So we'll be using one of these spaces. But off of that, we will be building, like I said, we do a small like children's moment every Sunday, just a little educational piece. I told you I got to get my knucklehead parents to get the kids here. But we're a budding church. We're kind of at that space where it's starting to happen. You know, you ever get that feeling like something good is about to happen, and you believe it, you have faith, you walk by faith and not by sight. And thank God, because I have glaucoma. So if it was left up to me, I would, but I just trust God that as they continue to come, and as God sends the folks to help us with those ministries, we have some folks in place. But as the steadiness and the consistency comes, we will have a more formal youth education and youth programming. We did an Easter egg hunt, and I just decided that on Palm Sunday. All of a sudden, Palm Sunday, I had 12 kids. And I said, okay, Lord, Easter egg hunt next Saturday. And my leadership team is looking at me like, what? Because they know that's going to require. But I said, what are we doing? God is giving us the opportunities. We have to take advantage. And so we had an Easter egg hunt. We had 18 children for that. We had about 10 children on Easter Sunday. Then we had a little bit of a drop. So we're kind of, doing the dance. But as they come and as we contact and stay in touch with those parents and those families, more programming to come.
I'm part of the Justice League here at the church, and one of the things that I'm thinking is that there's a lot of overlap in all of these organizations, and I don't think the Justice League is taking advantage of networking with these various organizations. I belong to the LGBT plus Giving Circle at the Community Foundation, and one of the things we're trying to do is establish networking among different communities in the city. And I'm involved with Image Out, and I've seen how they have reached out to various organizations, which we talked about 10 years ago, and finally it's happening. So it's very powerful. And I think the Justice League is very small, but powerful. And we're struggling with what we can do with the resources we have. So I think networking comes to me.
I think we need to end here, and that's a very good place to end. So let us thank again our speakers, Pastor Fred and Alan. Thank you so much for.
And I want to invite all of you back next week. The Quaker Earth Care Group is going to come and talk about how they as a group work and the work they've been doing with plastics. And I think it will be very fascinating. Maddie Schmidt, who talked earlier, is the one who's sort of coordinating that. And so please, please, please come back and we'll see you again next week.